Okay, guys, we're back this week. Do y'all have any questions about what we've covered so far? Any of the other chapters that we've covered? No questions? Really? Wow. Okay. Well, like I told you guys, we have a guest speaker tonight. Her name is Kristen Anderson. She's a federal court reporter. Been reporting for
17 years.
17 years. So she's going to talk to us tonight about federal court and, you know, everything that goes on in the federal court. I mean, so hopefully you guys took down questions about what we've been talking about, remember? Mm-hmm. Okay, so here's Kristen.
Hello, everyone. Yes, my name's Kristen Anderson, and I'm a federal reporter over here. Does everybody know where the federal courthouse here is in San Antonio? Mm-hmm. So are you familiar with Cesar Chavez downtown, that old World Fair building in Hemisphere, the courthouse? Yeah, that's the federal court, and the federal building's next to it. So just to kind of, I'm going to start there a little bit. Federal court is a little different than Bexar County Court. So the federal system is, there's a federal court here in San Antonio. We have one in Austin, Waco, Midland, Odessa, El Paso, Del Rio, and Pecos. I think that's all of them. I could be missing some. And we're all in the Western District of Texas. And so there's Southern District of Texas, which would be like Houston, Corpus Christi, Victoria. And then there's Northern District. So they're all different. And the greatest thing is when I got into federal court, I thought it would always be the same because it's a federal system. And every circuit does it different. So we're in the Western District of Texas, and there's all those other districts I told you. But we're in the 5th Circuit, which means that includes Louisiana and Alabama are also in the 5th Circuit. So when we appeal for things in our courthouse, that's the next level up. Our appellate court is in New Orleans. And so that's where we would go to the Court of Appeals like it is in Austin here, if that makes sense. So you're all familiar with the federal government, right? The legislative branch, the executive branch, judicial branch. So I work for the judicial branch. And if you are familiar with the court, the reporters that work in the U.S. House of Representatives or the Senate, they work for the legislative branch. So that's just a little, and maybe that's not very interesting, but that's just kind of the core of it. And so, for example, just a little bit of history. I've been a federal reporter for 4 years here in San Antonio. That's what brought me here. And so my judge came here from Hawaii. So he was appointed in the District of Hawaii only has one, unlike Texas, that's so large, but that's the 9th Circuit. So there's all the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, there's all these circuits throughout the whole country. And then of course anything that they appeal to those appellate courts, like in Chicago, in Washington, D.C. even, they all go to the Supreme Court. That's the next level up when you see cases that end up in the Supreme Court for a final decision. So that's a little bit about the structure of it. Federal reporting. So like I said, I started reporting about 17 years ago. And since I started, I always wanted to be a federal reporter. But I couldn't do it at first because I needed 4 years of experience. So they often say that. I think if you look through your handouts a little bit, so kind of maybe that's a little out of order. I put it like there's been an opening in El Paso for a long time, but it talks about a little bit of the requirements of the positions. So you have to have 4 years of court reporting experience. And they require your RPR, technically your RPR, but in Texas you can work at our courthouse if you have a CSR because it's an equivalent, the Texas exam is. And then a little bit different structure is for every certification that you get in federal court, you get a raise. So, and a lot of it's required. Most of them will not hire reporters that will not provide real time. So if you get your real-time certification, you get a 10% raise. If you get your registered merit, if anybody's familiar with that, that's $260 Q&A and $240 jury charge, I think, and $200 lit. Yeah. And so you get another 5%, just so down the road, you know. They talk really fast anyway. And then of course they used to have longevity, but they don't have that anymore. After 2009, they don't have that. So that's a little bit about the structure of the pay, but and your certifications. So in federal court, what's different a little bit than in state court is, for example, the types of hearings that we do. Criminal, we have a lot of illegal reentry cases. Those are the smaller criminal cases we do. And the bigger ones we do are the drug cases. So we get a lot of the, we don't get possession cases like you do over in state court. It's usually people that are bringing in truckloads of marijuana and methamphetamine and smuggling it across the border. So, and just for exciting things, I guess I can say, a few weeks ago we had someone in our court that was involved with one of the drug cartels, and he ended up getting sentenced to like 5 life sentences for all kinds of drug trafficking related crimes. So that's a little bit about the criminal stuff we do. And then civil, we do patent litigation, a lot of antitrust law. I know this sounds really exciting, but it is very interesting. The lawyers are very sophisticated. They live in these cases. So when you go to take this stuff down, it's like this is their life. You know, so you really have to hang on to it. But those kind of cases and a lot of civil rights kind of types of cases, we have those too. So that's a little bit about the structure on that. And I also, in your little packet, everything in federal court is digital. I don't know if they're like that over in Bexar County. Everything's electronic filing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I printed these out for you, but they all have to be filled out and electronically filed on the, what's it called? Court, we call it CMECF, and it's Court Management Electronic Court Filing. So that's where they have to put everything. So they have to fill out a transcript order, and I just gave you guys an example of that. And some of it really is still kind of antiquated because they don't really have to send us 4 copies anymore. They used to have to take these transcripts and send 4. Sometimes one, if it's an appellate case, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, they'd have to send it to you, send it to the appellate court, send it to the district court. But really now it's all electronically. So if you're reading through that and see, what does it say, send 4 copies and stuff like that, that's, imagine that, it's a little outdated by the government. But the top one is Administrative Office Form 434. So they would come in, these are really handy. I wish I would have known about this back when I got involved in federal court, but we have a lot of paperwork. So, but it's good to have a paper trail of where you're going. So that's the type of document they file for if you go, when you have a hearing, a sentencing hearing that they want to order, or a motion to suppress before trial, they would want to order that, and that's called a non-appeal transcript order. Then we have something we filed, the one that's the DKT 13, and that's something that goes to the federal court. So that's something after you've had all the case. Let's say it's a criminal case, you have your motion to suppress, you have your jury voir dire, you have your jury trial, and he or she's convicted, and then you have your sentencing. Well, they can appeal, like I said earlier, to that higher court. So the attorney is going to have to fill this out. And what it does is we have to acknowledge and notify when we get everything done. And we, over in federal court, get 30 days to do all our transcripts, whether they're 25 pages or 3,600 pages, like I have right now. But, you know, that's why you have to have scopists and proofreaders and things like that. So that's a little bit on that. And you can see the transcript rates are there, and those are, you know, they're published. They're on the website. I don't know if you guys are on computers or not here, but if you ever are interested in knowing a little bit more about it, there's the website, the uscourts.gov. That's a good website to go, and it lists all the job openings. And right now there are 13 federal court reporter jobs. I looked it up today. So there's a lot of openings. So there's a lot of need for y'all to get out of school. Yes.
Is that in the 5th Circuit?
That's throughout the whole United States.
Okay.
There is one in El Paso. It's been open for a little while, so there's still one there.
How about Hawaii?
Not at the current time, no. Yeah, there's one in Miami. There's one open in Miami. So
I mean, but look, you have to get 4 years of experience. So by the time you get your 4 years experience, it might be open in Hawaii.
yeah, well, and I would encourage you, even if you don't have 4 years experience, if you get those certifications, it doesn't hurt to apply. So if they have 13 openings, that's why we need you all out of school. So there's too many openings out there. And then I put that, that job thing, just so you would know a little bit more about it. Other thing we have in a federal court is we have this pretty nice system that we do for billing. And if you guys have any questions, just stop me along the way, because I'll forget where I'm at. So it's called WinUSR, and it tracks our time and our transcripts. We travel. I guess I didn't kind of go into that. So my judge that I work for, he has a docket here in San Antonio, he has one in Austin, and he has one in Midland. And occasionally I'm told he might want to go to Pecos. So I usually have to travel with them because there's not usually a court reporter there there to work. So, and we're a little short-handed too. So like this week I have to go work in Waco for a couple days, and next week I have a trial in Austin. So I travel a lot with him. And when he goes back to the Ninth Circuit, which is Hawaii, they do not let me go with him there. So it's just through Texas. Yeah. So anyway, that we do have to travel a little bit, but going back to that software, we are able to manage our transcripts on it, who's paid, what's outstanding, and the other part of it is you can put in there like if it's indigent pay, so the government pays for a lot of the transcripts that we do that are criminal. Obviously, a lot of appointed counsel, and they have a CJA panel, which is appointed counsel. There's probably, my understanding is roughly like 200 attorneys in the area that are licensed to practice over at the federal courthouse. So they have to meet a certain requirement to be able to practice law over there. Don't ask me too many questions about that. I just take it down. So, you know. And then we have Federal Public Defender's Office. And so over there too is it's the U.S. Attorney, the United States Attorney, Assistant District Attorney that prosecutes the case. In different states, it's like the state's attorney, the district attorney, just how this state's divided up. But that's on that. So this software too, we also have to log in our time. They want to know up in the administrative office what we're doing every day, all day long, kind of. So we have to log if we're working on transcripts, if I'm in court, if I'm traveling. I never knew I was that interesting. So yeah. So that's what we have to do too on that. Well, I am talking way too fast, maybe, yeah.
So with the transcripts, like going to different courts, you work for the same judge, but is the format for the transcripts the same?
Yes, that's a good question. Yeah, we have certain guidelines we have to meet, and in federal court, you get your money's worth if you're an attorney. I should have brought you a transcript, I guess. Our margins are, we get a lot of ink on the page, so, but they're set basically within our district of how they're going to be. And they're all the guidelines are on the website, so people, if they wanted to question whether we were trying to do anything unethical, they could check that out. And actually, if they got up to the appellate court, I'm sure they're watching that too. So it is. And I was trying to think of something else. I'll have to come back to that in a minute. So yeah, you were asking me about, so right now we have a visiting judge from Washington, D.C. He likes to come here for the winter. So we do not have a court reporter that covers him. So we all have to pitch in and help him out too when he's having trial, when he's here. So recently, last year, the federal government did a weighted measurement study. That's why I'm telling you about all this time we have to log in, because it's their opinion that pooling is probably a better route to go. And so in a personal opinion, I may agree with that, but that's, I mean, when I've worked for judges, I like to have that relationship, that camaraderie in the office. But over in federal court, actually the court reporters are all together. We don't office with our judges, we're separated. So that's kind of fun to work with them. So we celebrate and commiserate together. It's kind of fun. So, but we do have to cover the other judges, and that's when I go to Waco this week, my judge is not going to be there. One of the judges from El Paso is covering. They don't have anybody that's been appointed since the judge up there retired. So the visiting judges go in, and sometimes they can visit from anywhere and go in and help cover cases. That happens over in Del Rio a lot too. But anyway, they're having court up there with Judge Martinez from El Paso, so I'm going up to cover him since I'm already going to be in Austin tomorrow. So it just works out great. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
another question. So you said 30 days for each transcript?
Mhm.
Does that mean okay.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Do you have to edit and provide, you have to submit every transcript?
Yeah, so 30 days is the max delivery that we have, and I could go into that a little bit more. Most of them don't want to wait that long. Of an appeal, sure, there's no rush on that. We have 14-day delivery. Expedited is, quote, 7 days. We kind of like that. That's good. You want it expedited? That's 7 days in federal court. And then we have daily, hourly. I think I have it all listed on there. And so my understanding is pretty soon we're going to have a new altered expedited that's going to be like 2 or 3 days, which is what it should be. Because half the time they'll say, can you do this expedited? And we still get it to them in 3 days. We are team players over at the federal courthouse. So, yeah, that's a good question. But 30 days. So I'm afraid I might find out soon. I've never had to ask for an extension. So I'm afraid on this big trial I'm going to have to, but we'll see. I'm going to try not to. But yeah, like I said, I'm going to have a scopist and a proofreader probably help me out a little bit on that. So there's some foreign witnesses from Thailand in it, so I'm sure my translating rate wasn't impeccable. So, yeah, but they do. And you can, if you want to get an extension, so I don't want to make it sound like they're going to put you in jail if you don't get it done in 30 days. I have to get a letter from my, we have a managing, we are through the clerk's office. I didn't mention that. So we work under the clerk of the court in federal court, and then there's a divisional manager, and that's who we report to technically, but we technically report to our judge too, because that's important. Now, one great thing about federal court is once one of the federal judges is appointed to the bench, they are there for life. Some stay on the bench till their 90s. Unless they take senior status, then they're not entitled to a court reporter and certain other staff that they have. They have law clerks too that work in their chambers and help them do research and stuff on their decision before they hand down a decision. So they're not entitled. Now my judge is a senior judge, but he carries a full caseload, so he's entitled to have me as his reporter. He has to get it checked though every year. But they're appointed for life, and unless they commit a crime like you or me would do something, they're on the bench. So that's nice. You don't have to go through elections and stuff like that. You pretty much have your job. And so that's that part of it. I'm losing my train of thought. Yes?
Since you brought up the translator,
Yeah.
in our book we had gone over that last time, last class, and we're supposed to ask what kind of parenthetical you use for swearing in the interpreter.
Well, we actually don't, because we have 2 staff interpreters that are sworn in by their very employment there. So, like on our caption page, we just put Sonia Hart is, like, for example, our interpreter over there, and just court-appointed interpreter. We put her on the appearance page, so we don't have to do that. I don't swear anybody in. That's okay. This is where I was. Good segue. Thank you. I don't have to swear anybody in. That would be a little bit different than deposition rolled and stuff. And then we don't touch those exhibits. That is not our job.
Wow.
Yeah. When they walk up and they say, "Oh, can you mark that?" and you're just like, they have a courtroom. It's kind of funny, sorry. They have courtroom deputies or courtroom managers, depending on the district you're in. That's what they call them. So they manage the whole courtroom basically. They're over there filling in. So everything is logged into this court CMECF system I was telling you about. So they'll have a minute entry, and that's how they know. It's 99% of the time it's going to be me with Judge Ezra. That's who I work for. But if I'm not there, they just put in the reporter. They put in which interpreter was there. We have, in a criminal case, probation officers there, pretrial officers there. So they have all that listed on the docket sheet. So when they go back, they can know who's there. So they handle all that management with getting it set, but they also do the exhibits. Now, it's a great thing not having to log those, but it's very important to have those later. As I get ready to do this big trial I'm telling you about, there are so many exhibits, so I still want them, when they're emailing them to her, I'm always like, and you can email them to me, because the exhibits are your savior, because they don't spell everything, you want to go back and look at what they're talking about, you can get it more from context. So it's a great thing, but we don't have to handle the marking of them. So, and a lot of that stuff, we have pre-trial motions and stuff, so by the time trial is going to start, pretty much the exhibits, they've almost agreed, and we go over what they have objections to, like in motions in limine, they're going to say, we object to these exhibits. So it's pretty streamlined once we get there, right down to the jury instructions. And we take those as well in court, so, and they're printed out for the jury. Otherwise, in federal court, a lot of them, just a little side note, is some of them don't let the jurors take notes at all. My judge does during the evidence stage. So, but it is nice when he tells them, and you can not ask for a transcript because he's always telling them it's for appellate purposes. But sometimes we do. We don't often, I've never had to read back in federal court. And I'm always ready to. It's all right there on the real time. But they, the court just doesn't, and my judge hasn't allowed it for the most part. And every judge is a little different on how they run their courtroom. If somebody is, you know, it doesn't happen very often in federal court that people are trying to argue with the judge. It just doesn't. It's very formal for the most part. People have to come up, they address the judge from the podium, and they have to ask to be excused from the courtroom. They don't always, but they're supposed to. And they cannot show up in court. Even women are supposed to wear jackets, but I've never seen a judge do anything if they just show up in a dress. But they're all have to wear their ties and their jackets. And I don't know, I've done this before, and somebody's like, you guys have to wear pantyhose, right? You can't wear pantsuits. Yes, we can. I don't know, I've heard that before. It's not that, I think we do have this handbook. I'm being recorded. So yeah, we have this handbook that we need to follow for the most part. So, but we don't. I work for the Hawaiian judge, so he's a little more relaxed. And we have casual Friday and stuff. We don't have court. That's just a side note. But it is formal in addressing the court and stuff like that. But it's also, it's not like it was 50 years ago, I would say.
So could we visit your court?
Yes, you can. I've actually had Alicia Tipton. You know Alicia?
Yes.
She's my little mentee.
Okay.
She's come over there a couple times.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we, so you can come and sit in on sentencing hearings if you really want some speed building practice. So I don't know. She has come for that. I don't know if that's what I would. Some days I don't like that speed building practice, and I work there. So I would tell you to come in on a day we're doing like a motion or something. It might be a little more interesting too, just to see how the whole process works.
Okay.
I mean, and sentencings are good. If you're up in your speed, I would say you definitely could come in and do the sentencings. But if you're in the lower speed, I don't know what speed all of you are at, but if you're like at 120 or 140, I wouldn't sit even 160. It's just, they're reading from documents. He has his whole script. So what I was telling you, when they have pre-sentence investigation and a report, this judge has looked through all these materials, and when he's sentencing a defendant, he's reading from the document. All those statutes and what he's been charged with and all the research that's been done, so they're just laying it all on the record, so it's all there for appeal purposes. And brief forms, that's where you come up with them really quick, yeah.
When would be a good day to visit?
So you can check, I gave you my card, you can just email me,
Okay.
and if I don't have court, one of the other reporters would have court. So there are 5 of us over there, and we have Pam, and she works with Judge Pittman, and if you think I travel a lot, she doesn't know where she's going to be day to day. She's in Waco, Austin. She was in San Antonio today, though. So she travels all over. So she's great. And but Chris Pogue, and if you know Glenn Pogue, that's his son. He's a federal reporter. And he used to be a teacher. So, yeah. And Carl Myers is a really good reporter. He also captions on the side. And then Leticia Rangel is there. She works with Judge Garcia, Chief Judge Garcia now. So Judge Beery, I don't know if you know all the judges over there. Judge Beery is a federal judge. He used to be in state court, then I think was at the Court of Appeals. Then he's been over in federal court for quite some time. And Chris has worked for him for 20 years. So you must be over there 20 years. And then Carl's been there about 17. So one of my point is they're all been there and they're wonderful, and we could, if I don't have court, you can always come and sit in with me, or any of them we can have court. See, but some of them have sentencings on Thursday. We try not to have the same dockets going on at the same time, because if my judge is having sentencings up on Monday, and then the AUSAs, the attorneys have to be in the same locale at the same time, so we're always trying to mix it up a little bit. So beginning of the week, that's right now when I usually do sentencings, and I tell you that, and my calendar's a mess for March, so they're at the end of the week. But if you email me, I can let you know. And if you go to that court website, if you Google the Western District of Texas, what'll pop up is the public website, and it says judges there, and it'll have the judges' calendars, and you can pull them up and see like what day of the week they're going to be sentencing defendants, and then what days they might have a motion hearing. So anything you might be interested in, you could email us and say, hey, would you mind? And just give us a day or two notice or something, and we would ask the judge. Yes. So, yes.
Do you do anything really that's kind of outside of a traditional court reporting role, as far as like secretary work for your judge or anything like that?
No, I don't. I know Chris that I work for, he does a lot of letters and stuff for his judge. But they do have judicial assistants in their office, so normally not. Now, when I travel with him out of town, his court deputy usually doesn't go with him, so I usually sometimes I have to travel with him, and I go to dinner with him and all that kind of stuff when we're out of town, and if he needs anything while we're out of town, I usually kind of go into that role. So, but not for the most part. In federal court, there's somebody that takes care of everything. When we go into go to a jury, there's the jury commission lady that comes up and she gets everything ready, and we don't have to do anything. So there's plenty of staff, some would say. So, yes.
On the really big cases, how long can jury selection usually last?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. So, in federal court, and my judge included, and Judge Lamberth, I just worked with him not too long ago, when they pick a jury, they don't let the attorneys question the jurors. They have to submit questions for the judge to ask, and then he approves it. I have hardly ever seen my judge, when he does pick a jury, he often lets the magistrate judge do that. There's certain things they can delegate. So there's another good point. I'll go into all that. My judge is a district judge. He is appointed by the President of the United States. That's kind of where I went. When they're appointed for life, they have to get confirmed up at the Supreme Court. So, and my judge was appointed by Ronald Reagan. So he's been on the bench 29 years, I guess. I think it is now. So he'll be on the bench for life. But we have magistrate judges, and we just had one retire. Judge Matthew retired, and so they had an opening, and they have I shouldn't say millions, lots of applicants, hundreds of applicants for that position, and they have a committee, a review committee, and then they decide who that's going to be the magistrate. And I think it's 8 years that they're there, and then they have to be renewed after every 8 years. So the magistrates are appointed, where that can change. So they can pick juries. A lot of judges delegate those different things back. When we have when we do this scheduling orders for the whole trial, the whole case, I should say. We see cases. I think this is different a little than state court too. We have a case that is our case forever, unless he gives it to somebody else. So we do everything in the case. So unless he delegates something to the magistrate judge, then it comes back. And they said a lot. Sometimes they do mediation in cases to try to get it settled, and magistrate judge can do that too. So they can pick the juries. But my judge can pick a jury in 45 minutes. So, and usually they'll go to sidebar if they have any other questions, and they'll do it. And it's really nice from a court reporter view, because it can, I've seen it at times too, get a little out of hand. So that's a good question.
In our book, we were reading about federal, I guess, reporters, and how it just depends a lot on sometimes what the judge wants you to take and things that you do take and don't take. Is that something that you learned just as you were going, or how do you keep track of all that?
So what is nice is my docket, I have a program, I know everything that's coming up for months ahead, all this travel, but I have a docket of everything coming up in the case. Now, Some things we call them are like dispositive motions that are before any kind of big hearing or a trial. And a lot of them, the judges rule on the papers. They don't have hearings on those. So motions for summary judgment, a lot of times, that means they're trying to tell the judge this case has no grounds to proceed on. So we want to throw all these things they're alleging. So we'll have but my judge has hearings on that, and that's the culture that he came from in the Ninth Circuit. They always had hearings. So he still does that. It's great for a court reporter because then you get to do a transcript probably. So that's nice. Otherwise, so I'm gonna tell you, we are not as busy sometimes as they are in state court probably. So I mean, when we are busy, we're intense. We're in big trials, so you have to be up on your game a little bit, providing real time. Oh, and that's another thing. So on the real time, my judge says he doesn't need it, but he's making his law clerk have it, who sits in the courtroom during the trial. So I'm sending my real time to the law clerk and then the courtroom deputy. They live with this stuff because they're marking exhibits and what did he say and when was it, what exhibit are we on? So it's a great tool. So you always want to be able to. That's something that makes us priceless, and it's very important in our job, and they've come to depend on it too. So that's a great thing. But if that answers your question, a lot of things aren't done on the papers, but my judge does have a lot of hearings on different things like that. So, any other questions? Yes, go
I have a
ahead.
silly question.
No, nothing
I watch
silly.
a lot of movies. You bringing up the cartels, like, has anything ever happened that a court reporter has been approached by a bad guy that just seems kind of scary.
You know, there's a guy, if you really want to take a segue to that, Ron Tolkien just retired from New York, and one time, there's a video if you Google it, I think, he was going to attack the prosecutor, this defendant was, and Ron helped tackle the defendant when he was on the record, so that was probably pretty exciting. I haven't watched it in a while, but there's something that happened. You know, I've been working a while now, and we have some pretty good security over there. Well, so it's usually fine. I'm trying to think. I'm supposed to know. I think it's the court security officers that carry guns in the courtroom, but the marshals actually do not. They have to put them in safes when they come in because they're actually handling the prisoners. So, yeah, I mean, the thing is, when you come to state court or come to federal court, the thing is when they get sentenced in these big cartel cases to all these life sentences, or just recently, we just had somebody come over from state court, and they're like, well, in 2006, he was sentenced to 15 years for, I could be wrong, but I thought it was murder, and I'm looking over at the courtroom deputy going, it's 2017 and it hasn't even been 15 years and he's here and he's been sitting to wait to go, you know, get sentenced on something else he's done now. And so in federal court, I think part of the lingo is that the sentence you receive is the sentence you will serve, less credit for good time, which is not much. You serve about 85% of whatever sentence you get. And so there have been a lot of changes recently, but some of the drug things are they come down on them very hard, especially if there's a gun involved, and so everything gets to be consecutive sentences. So sometimes even they can cry. They're going to be going away for a very long time. And they do it in months. I don't know how they do it over in state court. They'll sentence them to, 220 months. So it's a long time. Yeah.
Have you ever for freelancing, I think sometimes you can take depositions under federal rules or with attorneys. How does that work? Do you know much about that?
Well, since I know I'm just like 30 and I've only been reporting for 17 years. No, I'm just kidding. So I've been working a long time. I used to freelance right before I got this job, actually. And I did a lot of federal deposition work, discovery depositions. And there's requirements about how long they can depose a witness on certain issues. And don't ask me what that is. I kind of don't remember. But they do that. So I cannot work outside of my courtroom without the permission of my judge. So if I had somebody call me to take a deposition, even on a Saturday, I technically need to ask him, is it okay if I go do this? So I can't work outside of my courtroom without permission. But that was great material. I mean, so if you go out into the freelance world, it's great because you see a lot of these cases before they get to where I am. And a lot of judicial economy, sometimes when we have a trial, it's a huge trial. I've been here 4 years. My first 2-3 years, very busy. Lately, like this trial I'm telling you I'm typing up now, and the other one, one was over a year ago now. So it's been a little bit, so you just don't know. It kind of comes in waves. But then when something does go, it's usually a big deal because they do everything to try to settle cases or get people to plea off of them, just trying to save judicial resources all the time.
So with that, like how familiar were Texas or CSRs? We know the state rules, but if we're freelancing in a federal like deposition, how familiar do we need to be with federal rules? It just seems like it would be a lot different, but maybe it's not.
Well, so the guidelines on the transcripts you're gonna file, probably, when I freelanced, we had federal guidelines. So I had different layouts for what I would do. But that was up in Kansas and Missouri. So, and like I said, I thought they were all the same, but I found out we do a lot of things different here in Texas than we did up
Federal courts there.
Right, it is not all the same. Well, this is another great thing that I'll share with you. So we were going to try to work on this a little bit. I don't know, this is why you always have to, be nice and to people that are above you and serve everyone. Somehow years ago, somebody up in the appellate court here decided when these appeals I told you we talked about, so if the one side orders it, that's another one thing I can tell you about too, but when you order it, so it goes up to the appellate court makes a courtesy copy for the opposing side because they say it's part of the docket. No, it's not part of the docket. It's supposed to be, our transcripts are supposed to be separated from the docket. They're on the docket, but they're locked for a certain period of time, so that's what I'm going to go into. But only in the Fifth Circuit in the whole country is the only one that gives them a copy, the other side a copy, so we don't sell that copy. They get it for free from now, I mean, it is all digital, but still, anyway. So, but that brings me to another point. So when we file those transcripts, they're public record when they lock up. And there's a redaction period. Immediately when we upload those transcripts, it sends out all this automated stuff that you have 15 days to come back and say, we want to redact. So I often do it because we have certain things we take out, social security numbers, minors' names, and sometimes addresses, depending on what they're talking about. So we take those out. And the attorney has a window of time to also make those redactions. So that's that part of it. And then you just do the redacted transcript, file it right on top of that. And then they have, so 90 days our transcripts are locked, meaning unless you pay for it, you don't get a copy of it. And you think, well, 90 days doesn't sound like a lot. And it isn't a lot, but that's within that time frame is when they usually have to have their appellate brief filed. So that gives them, but I might not be selling that copy anyway. So, but it's locked for that period of time for anybody who wants it. And they have to be registered through PACER to be able to get to those. When I say public, you're not just going to be able to just go on there and find all this information. Uncle Sam is going to want to know who you are before they give you an account to go on there and check it out. So that's another little part of it. Okay. Any other questions before I look on to the next thing here? Okay, let me think.
Who keeps the exhibits?
The courtroom deputy during the trial, and then they send them back with the attorney after trial's over.
How long do they keep them?
Who, the attorneys?
No, deputies.
Oh, just during the trial.
And that's it?
Mm-hmm.
So after the
And then
trial,
you-
they're given back?
Yeah, and we scan them in.
Okay.
That kind of thing too, if they're documents, obviously. So only one. I think my first case here, we had him come in and set a bale of marijuana right in front of the courtroom. That only happened one time though, and and then after the trial went on for a little while, the defense is like, is it gonna be aggravating to the jury? Well, it's gonna be something to the jury. Well, it's just, it was packaged quite a bit, but it was just, that's the strangest thing. Otherwise, you know, we don't have guns and stuff in there. I've never had any of that, so. They have to, after, they have to give those weapons, they seize them after when they plea in a case, whether it was a drug case or a gun case, they have to relinquish the weapon afterwards. So I don't know what they do with them after, but they have to give them back. So,
I have another question.
yeah, good.
So it sounds like you don't really have an average week, but like how many hours per week would you say you work? Like at the courthouse, do you do all of your editing there, or do you go home and you work on transcripts through the night?
Well, let's say, when I got into federal court, it was a lot better than freelancing. I worked day and night doing that, it seemed like. But that was a little different, it's a little different world, freelancing, because you have clients and you want to keep them, you know, I need that tomorrow. Of course you do. Okay, I'll work on it all night for you. So, our typical day, I guess you should say, I have to be there 8 to 5, and I technically have an hour for lunch. So, if my judge leaves for the day and he leaves at 3, I get to leave at 5 o'clock. I don't get to leave early. So, and we have to log in and log out. That's we have a new, Jeanette Clack is our new clerk. We haven't had a new clerk for 2 years. So we're considered, I was talking about that. We're part of the employees under the clerk of the court. Yes. And so those courtroom deputies downstairs, we're all part of the same, I report to the divisional manager too. So we're under the clerk arm of the employment over there. So a typical week, my judge usually does sentencings on Monday. And then we start the week out, because if we're going to have a jury trial, he's going to send it to the magistrate judge to pick the jury while he's doing his other court. Then we could be in trial. But then he also sets motion hearings as backup things throughout the week, usually the morning. My judge doesn't like to have afternoon court too much, unless we have to. And that's how busy we are. I mean, we have a full docket. They rule on a lot of things on the papers. They're very busy, but sometimes we don't make a lot of records, and then other times we do. But I work late. I work late a lot of times, but I find that I get distracted at home. I don't work very good at home when I get home. So I stay there, work a lot of times to get it done, and the way I'm set up, I have like 3 computer screens going on. I have my work computer where I pop up all this CM, ECF stuff where I can look up cases and information that I need to. Then I'm like Googling. I mean, that's the best thing ever, to get smiley's and everything. I don't know how I ever did this before. And then I'm working on this, okay, and this is the transcript I'm working on. So I'm like, okay, like look this up over here, I'm gonna look this up over there. And like our courtroom deputy in the courtroom, they all have 2 screens up anyway, so they can look at multiple things at the same time too. So, but that's my typical week. And then I guess I don't, because then I'm traveling. I'm supposed to be in Austin like at least a week a month, and in Midland, but Midland went away in March, and I'm not on, that's so disappointing. Anyway, so yeah, it's a little, it can be, it's kind of feast or famine a little bit, which they say in the freelance world. I mean, I'm there every day. There's something for me to do. We have this visiting judge who is there, so we do have to cover him, and he's in trial quite a bit. So.
You buy your own equipment?
Yes. And you have to be able to have it, it's kind of in that job description, it'll say you have real-time capability. And that's, oh, you know, the exciting thing is, you know, you should really want to come and work in federal court, because we are going to get a new courthouse down here. So if we all live through the one we're in now, and that is on the right, we have asbestos and all kinds of stuff going on over there. So they're going to have a new courthouse over there, and we are talking about, so I use Stenocast. I don't know how much you guys know yet about broadcasting for real time and different things like that, but a lot of people use Bridge, and they go to a website, and so like the courtroom deputies downstairs can log in and go get their, on the intranet there, so they can go in and get the code and log into the real time. So that's nice, and hopefully we'll have something a little more uniform at the new courthouse, because our Wi-Fi over there is just kind of, we have our own independent Wi-Fi that the court reporters use in our offices. And so, and then that's, okay, that's a good point. We pay for everything in federal court. So, but now they do provide us a phone line. So what happened was, years ago, they used to say, we will provide you a phone line, but you have to pay for it. And it's the idea that we get paid for these transcripts. It's the only way they can justify the salary that we have and then the transcript income that we make. So my Post-it notes, my pens, my paper, my printer, everything, I have to buy. So all that is my stuff. But now they have extra stuff over there, so they'll provide you a desk. And we have phone lines because everybody needs to be on the same communication. There's something they call Same Time, which I don't log into because that's on this government computer that I said I look everything up on. I can't have my software on that. I have to have it on my own computer. So that's just for my work use. And mainly it got started because we have to log in our time and attendance every week too. So we need access to that. So we have government email addresses and then the phone line they provide because it's all digitalized now. So yay, we don't have to pay for that. But we have to pay for our own internet. We do have our own internet, which is fine because it works so much better than the internet they have there. The other one's kind of sketchy, and if you try to log into the real time on there, we just had all kinds of problems. And why I continue to use Stenocast. So anyway, more than you wanted to know on that, probably.
So do you guys just all pitch in for like the internet bill and stuff?
Just pay for it for the whole year or quarterly. Yeah. We all
But
just
is
do.
it tax write-off?
Oh yeah, sure it is. Business expense, all that stuff is. So that is, and basically that software I told you about that tracks my time and my attendance. Also, when I go buy stamps or envelopes or whatever, I just log all that in, like Staples, just send all that information there. So I have all that when I have to go buy stuff. And Staples is great because it just delivers it right there to the courthouse. But yeah, so we write all that kind of stuff off, that kind of. And so you have to keep up your support contracts and stuff. That's all important because, and it's good to have a backup machine. Carl has about 6 smart writers, and I'm just kidding, but he does have 3, I think, so.
That's my backup.
Ah, right. We'd all be in trouble because we don't have that anymore. Sorry, I don't even have my notes now, right? So, but you know instantaneously if you're having problems, and you can keep writing, like to your Diamante. Even when it tells you it's dead, it's not. Not that you would ever want to try that, so. Yeah.
How long do you have to keep your notes?
Forever. 14 years, I think it is.
Regardless of whether it's civil, criminal?
Mm-hmm. I think you guys asked me that before. I thought it was 14 years. Yes?
More personal, but what made you want to get into court reporting, or how did you like come about it?
Oh, really? Court reporting? Well, let's see. I was graduating from high school and didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I was still having a lot of fun, just, getting out of high school, I guess. And my dad my dad's like a tax accountant, and he goes, well, actually I wasn't quite out of high school because I went and shadowed it. So he said, well, how about court reporting? He goes, they make pretty good money. I'm like, okay. So when I was in high school, I went and shadowed like 3 things. A physical therapist, a medical, that's wow, it takes a special person to do that. I went and did the medical records department at the hospital, and that was pretty boring. And then so I went, and then we sat in at the courthouse one day, and I was in this office procedures class in high school, and I was like, wow, that was pretty neat, kind of do your own thing. I knew I was good with typing and all that kind of little management stuff, but I didn't want to be somebody's secretary my whole life because I started doing a lot of that when I was in college. So it was kind of neat, and ironically, I went to court reporting school, and my first job was at that courthouse where I went and shadowed, where I grew up in Kankakee, Illinois. So I worked there for a while. So interesting, don't ever be afraid of anything you're going to do, and this is a little more personal about how I got to where I am, is when I was a brand new reporter and got certified in Illinois, they just sent me to court. So I had to take, now you talk about busy, we do, at 9:30 in the morning, we do a status on like, I don't know, 32 or 40 cases, just status hearings on all these cases. Then we'd start our jury trial or our motion hearing, so we were very busy. It was great, but it made, you know, you never were scared to take anything. So that's why you should go out and shadow and set, because I also had to go when I was training. I sat in like this really secretive case up in federal court in Chicago. It was like all this, I know you're going to be really surprised. There was like this mafia conspiracy about the construction contracts and stuff like that. And you're just this young little person going, okay, this guy's in the witness protection program right now that you're taking. So it can be overwhelming, but it's good to go set through those things because you're going to hear anything. Because later on when I freelanced, after that I was an official in Kansas for about 5 years, and then I freelanced for 4. My Kansas court wasn't as busy. I went to it was a civil court, so it wasn't as busy. But when I went freelancing, I always found it interesting that there was a core of us that, okay, you're out taking an engineer's testimony all day, and you're getting that call at 4:30, 5 o'clock. Kristen, are you done? Are you done? Well, I should be done soon. Why? Well, you know, there's a doctor depot at 6. Can you go take that? And it's like, but I'm not the one on call, and so-and-so's on call, but they don't do doctors. What do you mean they don't take it instantly? You know, you'd think they were scared to go take doctor depots. So I'm telling you, you can take anything down. So that's why you'd never tell them, I would never tell them no. I would have never told somebody if I were certified that there was something I couldn't take. So that was always disturbing if you got that kind of phone call. But yeah, so I guess my dad got me into it, and you know, it's that drive to, you have to be able to want it. I got distracted in school. I mean, I wasn't out in like 2 years, but when you decided you wanted it, you just got done. So it's good to get that practice time in. So, but the federal court, I used to, we called it Job Bank Friday. It came out from NCRA every Friday, and I'd be like, oh, look at these federal jobs. You started have these job descriptions all over the country, like, oh, it'd be so cool to live there, or whatever. And I just kind of, I liked federal court because it was just, it's unique, and it's, I know it's challenging when you do have to take it, and there's a lot I like about it. So it's, yeah, it's a lot different than state court. I mean, everything you do out there is important, but it's the structure is good. My brother always tells me, he's like, it's a good thing you work for the federal government. If the federal government goes under, we're all going under. They print the money, so you know. So that's on that. Any other questions?
What are the benefits in federal?
They're pretty good. Some might be better, but they're so we have a TIPS program. I forget what that exactly stands for. So it's a retirement. They match 5% of your salary. You have medical, vision, dental, short and long-term disability. Definitely want to get that when you get out too. You could fall off your horse, you know, things like that do happen from time to time, and so you can get hurt. So that they have all that kind of insurance, and like vacation. So if you're there up to 3 years, it's a little different. You have to earn it before you can use it. You get 8 hours, or you earn 8 hours a month. So 4 hours a pay period. You're paid bi-weekly in federal court, and everything is direct deposit. I mean, this all was a big deal back in the day when I was in school, which is getting to be a long time ago. So now I'm sure everything's direct deposit. But you have to sign up for that. So you get vacation, and then your sick leave earns always on that same scale I'm telling you, and that gets stored forever. So if you ever got sick or a loved one got sick, you have that stored up to take off that kind of sick leave, which is very nice. It's called, you can take it for family leave too. But then after you've been there for 3 years, you earn 6 hours of pay period, so a day and a half a month. So I get 18 days off a year, technically. But we do get more vacation days than the you know, the state does, that we recognize more holidays, I think, federally. And Fiesta, I guess that's that's because they can't run any court down there because there's too much going on. So there's that. And then after you've been there 15 years, you earn 8 hours at pay period, or 2 days off a month. So 24, you earn 24 days. So you get there after you've been there a long time. So, and there actually you can bank so much of it, and then you might lose. You have to use it, or you'd lose it. I would never know. I've never lost vacation time. But when I do have to travel a little bit for continuing education and stuff, my supervisor gives us a day or two for that, to do that without taking vacation time. So it all works out. He's a pretty reasonable guy.
So for your continuing education, do you go like to the conference, the Texas?
Yeah, I do that. So I belong to a few organizations. So the federal one is the USCRA, it's the United States Court Reporters Association. So I think that's like $50, maybe less, for students a year. And so they're very involved with CRAIG, which is a research thing where they're always working with the federal courts to, like when they were talking about doing our extra page rate, they have to go through all this government bureaucracy. So they work together with them. And this weight management study I was telling you about, so they had to work with them on that. So USCRA is fine-tuned to the interests of federal court reporters. And it's a pretty strong group. They do a lot of great things. And when we have continuing education credits, they have speakers that come from, you know, the FBI, the DEA, all that kind of stuff that we hear about. Those are the agencies that come and testify where we are agents like that. So we have that kind of stuff, and then just like the system, us like the CMECF tricks and things like that to make it easier for us. So we have that in there too. Yeah.
Did you go to the NCRA convention?
Oh yeah. Well, by the way, I am NCRA director actually. So if any of you would be like interested to know more about that, although I didn't tell Mr. Zarate I was going to be talking about any of that tonight. So, but I put a little application in the back if you're interested in that. But I've been involved with, when I was a student ambassador for NCRA when I was in Court Reporting School. So I've been a member there for a long time. And I do go to all their conventions to get their points. And then I have to attend state affiliate conventions. So I don't have a problem getting my points, usually. But I usually try to get my Texas points here because they don't always acknowledge everybody else's everywhere else. So you have to, when for Texas, you'll have to go to the website, and I'm sure you know about that, see what's been approved. But a lot of things are unilateral with NCRA. So a lot of those speakers do both. Yeah.
So the application for the NCRA for the students, I can't remember which certificate I received, if I got it for TCRA or NCRA, but I think it said it was getting ready to expire soon. So how do we go about renewing that? We just fill out the application again with us being students, or how does that work?
I don't know. You email me the certificate you're talking about. Is
Okay.
that, I don't know. I didn't know about one, and if it's TCRA, I wouldn't have anything.
Probably TCRA.
Because I think if you got sponsored, you automatically got a membership for a year, right? You got sponsored?
I did, but
Going to the convention?
Yeah.
okay, so maybe that's what it is. But I thought
And if you want to be a member of NCRA, if you email me, a lot of times they'll somebody working will sponsor you. I've sponsored like 3 people already this year. So anyway, yeah. So that if you want to do that, but it's a good way to get involved networking, and this is like, ooh, good. So that this may be a little segue. So me being involved in NCRA is how I probably stand before you today, because I knew Glenn Pogue that used to work in Bexar County. He used to be very involved, or he still is actually, even though he's retired with NCRA. People of his stature can't go away because we still need him. So I knew him, and this job came up, and I lived in Kansas City, and I'm like, you know, that sounds warmer, sounds interesting, and you know, I applied and talked to him about it, and you know, sometimes it's beyond your control, but I think it helped that I knew him, and I probably wouldn't have looked into it had I didn't know him, you know, type of thing. So sometimes it's all the connections you make, because there's jobs everywhere in this country. I mean, I just told you, what, 13 in the federal court, and that's unusual. Now, honestly, I don't know. Somebody said, you know, our president has put a freeze on federal employment. I don't know that, I haven't received any notice from the administrative office that they're not hiring the federal courts. I think that might have to do with new positions. So these are things that are open. So they're going to be open. So there's jobs everywhere. And a lot, we have freelancers too, so not as much lately, but federal, so grand jury, you know Barbara Duran Hollis? She does all the grand jury proceedings. They're at the federal court. Well, not all of them, a lot of them. She does that kind of stuff where they're going to charge, there's enough evidence to charge in a case. So she does that kind of work within federal court, and she probably had to go through her own background check. Oh, and that's another thing. A pretty intense background screening to get into federal court.
Okay.
Yeah.
So aside from obviously not having committed any crimes, is there anything else that would disqualify you from working at federal court?
No, I would, so, I mean, to be a court reporter in general, you can't be convicted of a felony. So I think maybe you could have a misdemeanor, you know, it would be fine. There may be people that do that work there, I don't know.
I don't think you can have a felony as an equal.
Yeah, no, you're right, yeah, so.
I'd heard something like about credit, your credit
Yeah, they can
scores and
check
stuff
that,
like
they check all that. I don't know what the red flags are for that. I've never heard of them not employing somebody for that, but like, that's, human resources type of thing, but they do an extensive, you have to go through fingerprinting and all kinds of stuff, so. But it's getting like that. I mean, even to get your Texas CSR, I had to go, even though I had all that background check, I had to go through it again to get my CSR here, so you're still gonna have to do it. I had to go through it, no, I didn't. I went to go get that TSA pre-check thing, I'm like, really? Here's my federal government ID. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, yeah, so it's kind of, you do have to go through all that, so.
Did you have to take a psychological exam?
No. And you know what?
Because when I was working with the police department, I had to take.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I thought with federal, it would be like almost 30.
And you know what else? I didn't have to do a drug test. I don't know why. Now, I remember that when people say that, I mean, I've never actually had to for any of my jobs, but it's interesting that, did you really? Wow. Yeah,
Maybe
it
you
makes
just
sense
slipped
over
through
there.
cracks.
A federal employee would never do drugs.
I was clean for you. Is the pay structure any different in the different regions? Is it all the same?
Yes, there are COLAs, but San Antonio isn't one of them. Austin is. They get a little itty bitty. We have a little map that when we got our 1% raise. Sorry.
You see it on the check.
Yeah, it's like, no, it came right back out because the insurance went up. You're like, wait a minute, I got a raise and I have my check is less. So, anyway, yeah, they're in different, so my friend that lives in New Jersey, she makes, I mean, you can see on that, in this area, that's like 88,000. Now, people that have been there, like I told you about, like Chris and Carl, they've had all their COLAs, so they make more money than that. And my friend up in New Jersey, I know she makes like 98. So, because she's got that, she has all her certifications, and she has that cost of living allowance being up by New York, so. But she has not my page rate on all she's doing. But up there, they get so much of the medical cases and different things that go to, suits up there that are huge patent cases and stuff like that, because where is it? New Jersey and Delaware up there, they'll, everybody incorporates there, so they get sued up there, so big time litigation up there.
Well, I remember coming out of school, there was a job offering in Brownsville for the federal court, and it was high.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if it was still the same.
No, it should be the same. Actually, that was open again not too long ago.
I don't know what the deal is down there.
you know, if you can get anybody to go, if somebody can figure out how to get great rates down in the valley, anybody could live down there. Say, I'll pay you $150,000, or to be like, let's move to the valley because they need them bad down there. They need to do something, or a freelance agency needs to figure something out too. So, I have a friend that went down there to cover a trial for a couple of weeks, and she's like naming her price, and I need a pet setter, and I need this. So, you know, it's like if they want you bad enough. I don't know. Maybe that was just one situation. Fortunately, I don't have to go to Brownsville or anything like that. That's in the Southern District. So, and the way, I can't even explain to you how San Antonio is in the Western District, but that's just how they map it out. There's really, they didn't know where to cut it off, I guess. So, yes.
Is there any reason that you know of why they have such a hard time keeping people down there? I mean, is it just the location, or?
Yeah, I mean, that's just life in general. Over time, everybody gravitates to the large cities. That's why a lot of them are going into trying to do remote reporting, like saying, I'm here and I can write it over, you know, teleconferencing. But that, I mean, the federal government does a good job, but they need to reevaluate because they're falling behind sometimes, some places. So, I mean, you can't, on 1% cost of living allowances, you know how the cost of living goes up more than that every year. So, you know, we can all be hopeful that it can be reevaluated, but you have to be happy with what you have too. So it's here, there, and everywhere we have that problem. But they're very, very blessed here in Texas. So, yeah.
How long do you have to wait in between each certification?
You don't have to. I don't think there's not a waiting period anymore. So if you got your RPR. Oh, you mean like for me to get my certifications, or you just mean you're gonna go get your CSR, RPR? Right. And you just keep going. You can keep going. They don't have brick and mortar testing at NCRA anymore. So if you got your RPR done, you can take. They don't hold you back for that. Well, and that's a good thing. So I was telling her about this earlier. So there's this group on Facebook that it's called like a 100 Club, and it's 100 days, and you have to commit to practice every day, including the weekends, for 15 minutes at least, or you can do more. I saw students on there. If you miss one day, and it doesn't matter if you do it at 3 o'clock in the morning and you don't go to bed till 1 o'clock in the morning, you can do it at midnight. You just got to clock it every day. If you miss one day, you have to start over at 1 again. So it's that idea to get you to practice every day.
What is the group called?
I think it's called, I have to pull my phone up, like the 100 Club or something like that. If you email me, I can add you. But it's a good group. It's encouraging, and even a lot of professionals are doing it too. So, and even when you're working, you should be practicing.
Do you?
I did today, because today was day one since I told a friend of mine I would do it.
So how do you practice?
Well,
now you're working.
Well, I'm working, but I didn't have any afternoon court today, so I jumped on C-SPAN for a little while, and that was exciting. Found out what was going on in the House of Representatives, so that's what I did.
Something.
I just had it on the internet.
Words,
I get the email from them, what's going on in the Senate and the House. It's good to keep up with that kind of stuff. So, anyway, yeah, so I did that, and actually, they might tell me that wasn't fast enough, but I thought it was pretty good when you say, gentlemen from Texas, you have 1 minute. Woo, yeah, so some of it's not too fast, but it's all relative. But I have actually gone up there. I have a friend that works at the House of Representatives, and that's a very neat experience how they do the records up there, because actually when they get done, it's not verbatim like we do technically in the courtroom. They have to make it sound like like this timeless record of history, so they clean it up a little bit differently, so it has a good cadence to it, I suppose. So, but they're in there, they do all those committee meetings where all these, and the House is huge compared to the Senate, right? So they have all these subcommittees on different things, and they go in and take those. So there's floor reporters, and then there's committee reporters, and they're busy and they work into the night. But when they're off, they're off. They get time off. Like when the House is out, if they're out for 2 weeks, they might be like, "Ooh, I'm out for 2 weeks," and a lot of them go freelance if they're off. So they allow them to do that. So it's kind of interesting. If you're ever up in DC, you should go check that out too. So, and my understanding is they're, you know, over there on the legislative branch, apparently they have better benefits, somebody mentioned to me. But I don't know, I've never compared. So, just a little side note. Any other questions? So exciting, you all want to be a federal reporter right now. We can employ all of you, see, 13 jobs.
So I have one more question.
Yeah.
The actual language itself that the attorneys use, they said they have different things that they have to do to become attorneys for federal.
Mhm.
Is it more technical? Like, is it a more technical transcript? Like the vocabulary that they're using, is it thicker?
No, there's just more requirements for what they've done. Like if they want to be on the panel list, they have had to co-chair like some type of big case, like a murder case or something. They have to, you know, be on a certain amount of cases that they've been co-counsel on before they can do it. So supposedly they're stricter restrictions. I don't know that they're the language. It's different in its own right, but it's not. It's in the end of the day, it's all drugs and it's all crimes that they commit. So yeah.
Would you say you produce transcripts every day at your job?
Yeah. So when I get caught up, the magistrate judges have this thing called for the record recording system. So if we're caught up, they want us to type. We get paid, but they want us to type up those. So, or they have to farm them out. So we do those. You know, back when I freelanced, I mean, we did 1,500, 2,000 pages a month and stuff. I'm getting the feel of that again right now, but it's, I don't know. If I told you, I work on transcripts a lot, but I have other downtime stuff that I do if I'm in my office. Apparently I have 15 minutes to practice on my own time, and might have emails to respond to, but we have to log that too. Like when I told you about logging our time, I have to do email correspondence. But you remember, you have to bill too. I mean, that's the great thing about freelancing. You're pushing all those pages out. And it's like if you work for a firm, they bill it. They have to argue with the attorney, and so and I'm assuming they do this over in state court. But you know, you have people come in, they want to get a transcript, and I need it now, but I can't get you the money. It's like they have to bring you the money first, and so it's just, it just makes it easier to have it all up front. So it's, we require that up front. So you're your own biller, you know, you have to, well, we used to say bind and bill, but since everything's electronic, we don't really have to bind anymore, unless we have to send it. We send transcripts to the Bureau of Prisons, and that's where they keep all the federal and, you know, convicted inmates and stuff. So when we send stuff to them, we can't send transcript covers. You have to have it just the paper, and put like special packaging that's supposed to be opened in the presence of the defendant and different things. Because we have sealed hearings sometimes because of a lot of cooperation in different kinds of cases. And that's very sensitive to families and all that kind of stuff. So we have sealed hearings, and when I do those, I can't even discuss with a family member when they're calling, well, this hearing heard on that day, and I see sealed. I'm like, I can't discuss with you about what's in that transcript. The defendant's going to have to make a motion to the judge that he wants it, and that's the only way, and he's going to have to know. So it's best for them to do that all through their attorney, but that kind of stuff. So we have a lot of that kind of sealed, confidential stuff like that. And you have to remind them that it's for their own safety and the safety of their loved ones. So. Anything else? It's so exciting, right?
Nothing? Sure.
Have any advice? I mean, I don't know if it's just me, but some of this is kind of overwhelming and scary. Any advice for a student? What, just, you know, with all these, all the things that you're talking about, the federal courts, the things you do.
Oh, yeah. It's, well, you need to come and sit in. It's not over. It's nice to, you know, Alicia's enjoyed coming in because it just makes it real. You get tired of practicing those, the tapes and tapes. Anyway, yeah. So, it's good to go into the real world and do it a little bit, and sometimes that can be overwhelming too. But you know, she's still recording me. You have to record me. But I was just gonna say that, you know, people would always give you a hard time. You get every word, you get everything you can, right? And it's like, yes, you do. But I like to say, yeah, Jesus Christ and court reporters are absolutely perfect. Okay, I mean. Yeah, we do. We stop them, and like I was saying before, my judge kind of takes control of all that in my courtroom. But yeah, it's you just have to want it enough inside of you, and you just take a break, take a step back from what it is. And I know her and I were talking about this a little bit before. Is find that time of day. I can't practice at night after a long day. I have to do it first thing in the morning when I'm fresh. And sometimes if you're having a bad day, you're just having a bad day, but it gets better. And I don't know what kind of theory they teach here, but when I went to school, I went back for all of my endings. And if you're doing what theory are they doing?
Stinnett.
Okay, well that's what I had.
So we did
Okay.
kissing bear for a while, now we can't do it anymore.
Okay, so you know, it's just writing shorter will, and I know it's hard to comprehend that in school, but that makes your life easier out in the working world. Less strokes, because you're less tired, and that's how you build speed. So you gotta keep drilling and drilling and drilling, and, you know, get encouragement from your instructors. And
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Kristen. Thank you very much for
Thank
coming.
you.
And guys, and I'm not saying anything about Kristen, myself, any of that stuff. Don't be intimidated, you know. And you know, she, great reporter, great reporter. I think I'm a pretty good reporter myself, but you know what? We're not any different than you guys, okay? We were in the same position that you guys were in back then, and it seems a little intimidating, and I you know, said back then when I was in school, it's like, I'd never go to court, ever. If I lost my job, I don't know that I'd ever go back to freelancing. And freelancing is great, but you get to learn different things, and you get to where you get comfortable with things. And I, you know, like I was telling you guys, it's not a knock on freelance. To me, I need continuity. I need to know this is gonna happen, and I need to be here, and I need to know I'm making this much, at least this much, and blah, blah, blah. Other people are like, you know what? You know, like I was telling you, the friend of mine that, I mean, she would work crazy for 2 months and then just take a month off. But I mean, she would work, she's like, give me everything, everything, everything. And she was taking stuff and working till 3, 4 in the morning and blah, 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 and whatever, and these huge checks come in, and then she'd just take a vacation for 2, 3, 4 weeks. Take me off the books for that long, you know? So, I mean, we're not any different than you guys, and I think this thing is great. I'd never heard of this 100 thing. One, you should do it anyway. You should do it anyway. And I told you guys, you know, the hardest thing about practicing is setting up that machine. You know, it's like anything else. It's like going to work out at the gym. The hardest thing is getting there. Once you're there, you're okay, you know? But it's just getting there. It's the same with court reporting and practicing. It's setting up that machine. So you should set up that machine all the time. When you get home, set it up. Whether you get on it or not, don't find the excuse not to do it. Find the excuse to do it. You know what? There's 13 jobs out there. These are federal jobs. That's not even the rest of the other jobs. You know, and working in the valley, I mean, they're paying people to go down. I mean, just from here, getting people from here to go to the valley because nobody wants to go down there. There's a lot of money to be made still. And if we get to the point where we're not getting enough students out, they're going to find alternate ways of doing this. I don't think you want to know that, you know? I mean, so we have to stay up with it. I mean, so you guys are helping us as much as we're helping you guys, you know, because we're keeping this profession alive. But like Kristen said, it's about the drive. You have to want it. You have to. And it's not like, just whenever I get out. Yeah, I'm not going to practice today. And you find every excuse not to do it. It's finding the excuse to do it. You know what? I'm done with this. I'm done. I'm done, and it's not going to get the best of me. And from this day forward, I'm practicing at least 15 minutes a day. And challenge yourself. It's not for everybody else. It's for you. You have to want it. Okay? Any other questions? Anything? Okay, chapters 12 and 13. And they're pretty specific. I think it's like marking exhibits and stuff like that. So we're going to really go into that. 13 is marking exhibits. Alrighty. Yeah. And we may get to it, we may not. I didn't realize that 12 was that long. And 12 kind of covers a lot of stuff about objections and motions, how to report objections. So if we get to it, great. If not, but I want you to read 12 and 13. Okay? Any other questions about anything? No? All right. See you on Wednesday.